is not who I am.
Fit, right.
It doesn't fit. So you show by who you are that you are not that thing. So that's one way to just quietly work against it in everything that you do by being true to who you are. And someone said that to me. They said, I'm just being myself. They will see that this is not me and they will accept that. So that's one way to do it. You know, of course there might be anger for some people, and in counselling people are allowed to be angry and, you know, have a go at people and shout at them and scream at them and pretend they're sat in that chair and tell them what's going on. So that's some of the interactive stuff I would do if someone is a client. It does, yes, you know.
You've been through, well, between Grenada and the UK. Give us an idea of the personality of the different people that would, because in a sense, I know they say usually persons from different cultures, they will tell you the same thing but in a different way. But when it comes to us, we will tell you, when you look at the person, you know exactly why they got that name.
Yes, well, I think people can be more subtle abroad, and people don't do those sort of nicknames things outside of, so they do it in England, they do it in school, and they may do it if you belong to a cricket club or different clubs that people belong to, so they do it. Unlikely to happen just in the office, so, you know, it just won't be something that you do. And there are laws in England, things we have here like blacks and those sort of race things, you couldn't do that in England because it would be linked to discrimination. And things like that. So we're quite free in Grenada to say those things. But you have someone I've got, for example, called Big Red, because that's, you know, perceived to be her skin colouring. There's someone called Skull Crayfish, which again,
she's very free.
Yes, is a Grenada thing really, and crayfish is here. It's so culturally that, and crayfish, and it's so Grenadian and in the whole thing really. So those kinds of names are very specific to here.
It seems like you have personal stories of people that you actually interview. Give us an idea of what you actually had to go through in terms of the process in getting this book put together.
Yes, I had the idea, and I was in the middle of this counselling course, so this is even before I finished, and I thought, well, I've got to go to Grenada and do this. And it wasn't, I mean, I come regularly anyway, but this was a specific holiday that needed to be not holiday, trip, because it would be a working trip. So I came for 7 days, a week, that I snatched out of whatever was going on in my life at the time. It was a few years ago I did it. And for every day I went to a different village and stayed in the high street and in the town centre and talked to people who were out and about. There was a call in on the radio, Josephine Maguire did, and I'd spoken to Sherma Wells on another programme to tell her I was here to do these interviews and nicknames. So there was a little bit on the airwaves about it.
You were kind of aware.
Yes, so when I stopped people, they said, oh, it's you doing the nicknames project, you know, which was nice. And so people stopped and answered. I had a questionnaire that I'd devised and asked people about it, you know, what's your nickname, how did you get it, how do you feel about this nickname, how does it affect your behaviour, your life, what does it stop you from doing, or how do you feel about yourself because of this nickname, and whereabouts is it in your life? Is it all the people call you that, or just your family, or just your colleagues, or how far has it spread into your life?
What have you found?
Different people, different results, really.
Right.
So for some people it is just a school thing and they've left it behind, and for them it's okay, it was part of the past and that's fine, and it served them then, but they don't want it coming into their workplace. For others, because of how they live and how they work, and they still live and work in the community, it stayed with them, and that's how they live with it, because people know that more than their real name. Right. So for other people like Naka Joseph, who is also a cousin, he had a name that was a made-up name, but it's become his real name in some ways. He's known as Coach Naka, he's known as that. So that was a nickname becoming a real name.
Right.
So it's all the different ways in which people have worked with it, really.
And when it comes to usually what we find is that we have our professional name, so to speak. So we have a home name, and then we have a professional name. So that I had to do something for a young lady recently, and I know her as one name. Then when I went to the bank, they told me another name. I never knew that she had another name. So then in a sense it can become a bit negative when you really need, and it's not necessarily a nickname, it's just your first name and second name. That also sometimes poses an issue.
So it's almost what I was saying earlier, that the real name becomes secret because you use the nickname so much, or you use this other name so much that, you know, your real name that is on the certificate and the bank forms and whatever is a secret name to everyone who knows you, because they've never heard you by that.
Right. And then we have the attitude of breaking people people's name up. So I'm Rosalie, they call me Rose. You're Shirley, they might call you Cheryl or something. We always
That's sweet. I think that's perfectly harmless, and that's just, I think that's fun.
That's a whole different thing.
There's a pet name, and I didn't really do pet names because it's everybody's name could be shortened, and then I won't have anything, really meaty.
Unique. Yeah.
Yes, nothing unique. So
Let's talk a bit about those people. They're actual persons.
they're actual persons. I stopped in different parts. I mean, I know which village I spoke to different people, but I wouldn't say because I think people need some privacy. And
Right.
if you know the people, then you would recognize them. If you don't know them, then you won't, which is
Yeah,
fine.
so it's
The
not really
story,
spreading. Okay.
yeah, the story still stands. And for people who didn't like their name, we've put images. So this chap was called Pooh because he looked like Winnie the Pooh. We've just drawn Pooh here. Piano teeth, obviously, I wouldn't put her face in, so we just got a bit of piano. But if someone's happy with their name, then we put a picture, a drawing of them. So it's still not even a picture. Because some people I interviewed in the middle of the working day, and if they're a mechanic or working, they were a bit messy and they weren't ready to be photographed. No, so it's no point putting a photograph there of someone, and and I think also having the drawings is quite nice. I think it's
So what you
given,
did, you took a photograph and then and it had an artist.
Yes, I took the photographs back to England, so I had photographs for everyone, and then an artist illustration of those who I felt would be comfortable with the name, so that if they are recognized, it's fine. But for others, we didn't want that because that's not what they would want.
Okay, so what was the response? I mean, was people forthcoming with sharing the stories? What were some of the challenges you had in gathering this information?
I think once people stopped to talk to me, they were quite happy to. Once the stranger comes up to you and you decide to engage, then they were okay. They couldn't believe I was asking about that. I think they thought I wanted some other random thing that didn't relate to them, because people do research and all kinds of stuff, isn't it? And you sort of think, well, what's that got to do with me?
Right.
And I said, no, it's about, do you have a nickname? I'm interested in you. Tell me about your story. And most of us like to talk about ourselves. So people were quite, oh, well, let me tell you.
Right. And probably they had never gotten an opportunity to talk about it.
Because everyone just takes it for granted. That's your name, that's what we call you, that's it. So, they were quite...
And the thing that's interesting about this is that for it to be in a book is pretty awesome, because in a lot of cases they just call you that. That doesn't seem anything so significant or whatever. But to think that there may be some psychological impact or some effect of some sort, then I mean it makes sense. It's pretty interesting. Do you believe in the law of self-fulfilling prophecy?
I think some people do work with the name and make it kind of work for them. Yes, so they make it work. So I've got someone called Dr. Love who believes, he's is lovable and spreads love and is loving and is perceived as lovely, and anything to do with that. So there are people who sort of believe that this is who they are, and that works with them, and there are others who want to be different from it. There's a girl called Currents because her legs had the dark spots on it. Now she wears long skirts and wants to get away from that, and has moved away to college, and that's going to be behind her. So for her, it's not going to be fulfilling. She'll just move away from it. For others, it's part of what they want to be in the world and how they want to live.
And this one is called Bonnie.
Yes, and she's hoping that she puts on weight and the kids stop calling her that. But yes, and she, as she says, she was small when she was younger, but then she's accepted it, and hopefully as she gets older and a little bit like the rest of us, puts on a bit of weight.
So why is somebody called Chicken Hop?
He thought he saw a chicken when he was out in the sea, which is
supposed to be seen.
which is quite unlikely. It's some sort of bird that probably looked like a chicken. So the hawk and the chicken got merged to be in the nickname. So I think we're quite creative with words as well, from our different language background, from our Creole and our Patois, and what we can put words together and make them up, and we don't. It doesn't have to be right.
Enjoy that.
We just enjoy it. Yes.
Wow. At the end of the day, what would you want people to know about say the effect of nicknames, or what would you want this book to achieve?
Well, I don't want this to be too heavy. So for me, it was interesting. It's great to record it. So I'm in Grenada and I'm not in Grenada. So I'm both. And so I can see the culture maybe from the outside as well as the inside. And so it's quite nice to see. We take it for granted. It is what it is. But also not every culture's nickname are like this. So it's good, I think, as our culture changes, because it will continue to change and have more influences. It's nice to record where we are now in time. So for me, that was quite important to say. And there's some new names coming in. There's a Bling, and you know, for me that's a more modern name than something in the old Skipper and stuff that's been around a while. Bling sounds a bit American and a bit, you know, and Gangster B, and you know, so there are newer ones coming in, and maybe in 10 years time, if someone did this, there might be more influences of those sort of things. So that was part of the recording of the history. You know, these are oral things that we don't write down, so I thought that was good. And yes, some people like it, some don't like it. People manage to live with it somehow if they move away. Although actually somebody said to me they moved to America and the name followed them because they moved with the Grenadian community in Brooklyn and they were called the same name.
Right.
So it depends on where you move to and who you associate with as well.
So what advice would you give the persons who are struggling with their nicknames?
Be yourself. Be true to who you are, and hopefully they will realize you're not the person they're calling you, and they will begin to use your real name, or your uniqueness, who you are will stand out really.
And nobody can really label you but yourself. You have to accept that. You have to have accepted it to be true, and you have to actually live it out. Otherwise, it can change you if you don't want it to. Is that true?
No, absolutely, and that's probably what I should have said.
Yeah.
Yes, no, it is you. We are the creators of our own lives. We are in control of who we are. Our purpose in life is to find out who we are and what we can give to the world, what we can contribute, really how we are to be our true selves. And there's no point being a fake anything, even if that's what someone else tells you that you are. It's about being who you are and accepting and loving that. And sometimes we're so critical of ourselves as well. We don't even criticize others and ourselves and everybody. What we need to do is
very critical.
Yes, we need to embrace ourselves and others and just be the best we can be. And we're all flawed. We're all vulnerable. None of us are perfect. But that's okay, because we don't have to be.
Right. Anytime I think about the power of standing up for yourself, I think about a friend of mine. He was very, very slim, and they call him One Bone. It's like it's just one bone. And then he said to everybody that he was going to become a bodybuilder. And in the eyes of everybody, that was literally impossible. Nobody believed that he was able. They teased him. He made his own gym with concrete. He concreted two sides and put an iron in the middle, and he made his own gym. And everybody in the community, at home, at church, everybody teased him about it. There's no way you could ever be a bodybuilder. And you know, he became a bodybuilder and actually competed in national competitions.
Wow.
And actually got trophies as well.
Yes.
He came fourth and so on. And he went away and he had his own gym. And he actually became a very huge muscular person. So every time I think about that, it's not about what people say about you. It's about what you believe about yourself. That really matters.
And also that, especially if you're young, you're growing, so there's no way so that this person, if people reach puberty at different ages, people mature at different, people have growth spurts, so you don't, if you're little now and you're being teased, you will shoot up later on. So we all have our different maturation rates really, so you can't label somebody as a forever thing when you're in a process of growing anyway.
So they changed his name from One Bone to Tubbs. And then every time they think about that, they know the story. That you can't label me, I label myself. Well, Miss Anstis, this is a very good example, and maybe for some people who have been struggling, it is not the end of the world.
No, not at all. We can be who we are, and people will accept us eventually, but we have to accept ourselves. I think that's the important thing. Once we do, then people are more likely to accept us for who we are.
Because we tell people who we are.
Yes, by what we do and say, and not just what we look like. It's not just the, whether we're tall or short, or all those are superficial things. It's how we are in the world and how we are in relationships, really.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank
it's a beautiful,
you.
a beautiful
you.
example.
Thank
of,
you. And
I
it
guess
is fun
somebody-
as well. It's not as serious as we've made it sound. There are some jokes in
Very
here.
much. Well, viewers, we've been.
Oh, can I say, sorry, forgotten, there's a website and there's a Facebook page as well, so people can communicate there if they buy the book and want to comment on. It's They Call Me on Facebook, They Call Me Book is on there.
Speaking with Miss Shirley Anstis, and she's written a book, They Call Me. Basically looking at nicknames and how it affects different people in different walks of life. And for us in Grenada, in a lot of cases, it's pretty harmless. We think as we are the teasers, but when it comes to the person who will have to live with this name, we probably have to begin to think twice about the names we call people. And some people ends up becoming the names we call them. So maybe this is a thing, a culture thing.